PLAR, History, and Geography. Once again, my name is Jonathan. I am a teacher for this course. Hope everyone is doing well and everyone had a great weekend. Again, please call in and tune in and listen from your community. I would love to have you in. If you're at home, please listen, watch, whatever technology you may have. Okay, we're starting week 5. Okay, week 5, class 1 of PLAR, History and Geography. Okay, so special week today because we are starting about the second half of the course. We're going to start looking at geography, okay? So history is pretty much done and wrapped up. We finished that last week. So now I'm going to switch gears and we're going to look at geography. Okay, so again, just a reminder, please get those assignments into me, whether they're history or geography assignments, please send them to me. I know that a lot of our students are at different stages in their assignments. Again, we have new students who may be just starting their history. We have students that are maybe just on pace, I'd say pace of what I'm teaching. We also have students that are way ahead of me. I know finished history, way ahead of geography, and so which is okay too. Okay, so wherever stage you may be at, which is fine. As long as you finish your assignments, please get them to me and I'll mark them. Okay. So for all those who don't need the history and those who do need the geography, we'll be starting the geography section this week and today. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, any comments, just please let me know. I'm here to answer all your questions, okay? So before we begin the geography portion, let's go back last week for a bit. Again, we'll do a bit of review. Okay, take some time to refresh your memory about what we talked about last class. Again, I'm going to quickly go over those topics so that we can, get a refresher. Get those topics fresh in our heads, fresh in our brain, and that we can answer those questions for those assignments, and then we'll look at geography. Okay, class? Let's begin. Okay, so last class we finished up lesson 3, the second half portion of lesson 3, where we looked at the Canada Act, the Free Trade Agreement, and a famous Canadian woman in Canadian politics history. Okay, so those were the 3 main areas that we covered last class. Okay, so just go over the Canada Act, or otherwise known as the Constitution Act in Canada. Okay, it was signed on April 17th, 1982. Okay, so make sure you remember that date. Okay, you'll see the Canada Act again on your assignment. So again, just a quick reminder. Okay, so make sure you guys remember the dates of when the Canada Act or the Constitution Act was signed. Again, it's April 17th, 1982. So what was the purpose of the Canada Act or the Constitution Act? Well, it gave Canada complete control over its constitution, over its country. Okay, remember that we talked about the Charter of Rights and Freedom. It was also entrenched in a part of the Constitution as well. So all your legal rights and all your fundamental rights as a Canadian citizens are entrenched into the Constitution. Okay, so like we talked about, it gave Canada control over its own sovereignty. Okay, so remember how we're highly linked to the British Empire and the British, rule and sovereignty. With the Constitution now established and in Canada, we have our own control. Okay, we have our own control over what we want to do in terms of, establishing laws and orders. The Queen still has some power. Okay, but again, Canada doesn't have to ask Britain permission if you want to change laws or do something within our country. Okay, that's why the Canada Act that was signed on April 17th, 1982 is really significant. It's really significant. So like I talked about, all the provinces were in favor of this except for Quebec. Again, we're talking about Quebec again. Quebec felt that their individual, their own personal beliefs would be lost, and they would just be like another province in terms of being part of Canada. So Quebec didn't sign the Constitution Act or the Canada Act. Okay. Again, Quebec wanted Quebec, as a province, uh, highly Canadian, French-speaking Canadian citizens. They want to own distinct society, own influence, culture, own way of living. So that's why they didn't want to be a part of the Canada Act or the Constitution Act. Okay. So what happened, like we talked about again last class, was we talked about Brian Mulroney. Brian Mulroney. He was the Prime Minister of Canada in the 1980s. Since Quebec didn't sign the Canada Act, he wanted to please Quebec and its province and its citizens, so that they can, be a part of Canada and hopefully sign the Canada Act. So what he established was something called the Meech Lake Accord. Okay, the Meech Lake Accord. Again, Brian Mulroney, this man right here. Make sure you remember his name. You'll see his name pop up again. So make sure you remember why he was significant. What his role was, what he established in terms of Canadian history. Okay, so the Meech Lake Accord. Was basically something that was proposed by Brian Mulroney. So basically, this Meech Lake Accord recognized Quebec as a society, distinct society, meaning it's different. They're different. We recognize that they're different. They have their own culture, beliefs, views. Yes, they are different compared to everyone else. This is what Brian Mulroney wanted to establish and pass in terms of pleasing Quebec. Again, you see here a list of all the, what was outlined in the Meech Lake Accord. Okay, if you want to read that, you can read that again, but I'm not going to go over that. So what happened was that a Manitoba premier named Elijah Harper stepped up and voiced his opinion. And basically, he was a Cree Indian, First Nation Aboriginal. He voiced his opinion, stepped up, and say, "Hey, if Quebec is being recognized and treated as a distinct society, why can't, we as First Nations, Indigenous, Aboriginal people be recognized as a distinct society as well? Why can't we be recognized as something that's different as well, where we can maintain our culture, beliefs, celebration, tradition, history, and heritage as well?" And because of all this, conflict and argument created by Elijah Harper, the Meech Lake Accord was never passed. Okay, it was never passed. And still to this day, Quebec is still not a part of the Canada Act or the Constitution Act. They are a part of it, sorry. They are a part of it legally, but they didn't sign it. They didn't agree to it. Okay, so even though, all your fundamental rights, and your legal rights as a citizens, it applies to everyone in Canada, even people in Quebec, but Quebec didn't sign the Canada Act for that. So that was what happened with the Meech Lake Accord and with Brian Mulroney and Elijah Harper. All right, next. Last week we also talked about free trade, NAFTA. Okay, capital NAFTA, NAFTA. Short little form. Again, NAFTA stands for North American Free Trade Agreement. Okay, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Again, you'll see this term come up again in assignments, and we'll also be talking about that today, more about NAFTA in terms of the history portion of this course. Okay, so we'll go more in depth about what NAFTA is all about. But just a reminder, NAFTA was a free trade agreement between Canada, United States, and Mexico. And we got Fort Hope again once on the line. Good morning over there at Fort Hope. Can anyone hear me at Fort Hope?
Yeah.
Perfect. How are we doing over there today?
Good.
Yeah, excellent. Is this Delilah?
Delilah and Knight.
Delilah and Knight. Perfect. Oh, good morning. Again, once again, thank you so much for listening this morning to PLAR History and Geography, okay? So, and I do notice that for Delilah and Knight, that I have been receiving assignments, which is great. So hopefully you will get my feedback and comment sheets. I believe there's no issue. There should be any problems with your with Delilah assignments and Knight's assignment. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Give me a call, email me, find me on Facebook. I highly encourage that if you have Facebook, you find me at jhowasa, add me as a friend. That way we can communicate back and forth. I can send you your mark sheet on with feedback on how you did on assignments quickly that way. I could just attach it as a file and send it off to you. Okay, so just something that applies to all my students as well. Okay, again, social media, I know it's huge nowadays. So yeah, Facebook or anything or email, please get in touch with me, get a hold of me, and then I can quickly give you feedback that way. That way you don't have to wait until I shift it off during my express week once every week, and it takes a while to get to your community. Okay. But perfect. All right. So NAFTA again. NAFTA was a free trade agreement between North American countries, so Canada, United States, and Mexico. The purpose was to trade goods back and forth between these three countries without taxes. Okay, without taxes. So we can trade between one another without taxes. That was the goal. Okay, that was the goal. However, like we talked about, we talked about the good and the bad, the pros and the cons. Um, those are some negative sides or the not so positive, the negative sides of NAFTA. Okay, so some negative portion that we talked about NAFTA, about the free trade agreement, was that workers in Mexico were often not unionized. Okay, and they can be paid less to work, pay a lot less to work. So basically, think about how here in Canada, for example, when we're working, we're getting, money in terms of income for work. But in terms of people in Mexico, they're getting paid much less than we are, much less than we are, and they're often not unionized. Um, this may cause business to move to Mexico because it still produces their products at a much cheaper rate. So that's why American companies operate factories in Canada because the American dollar is much stronger than the Canadian dollar. Um, So those are the other factors too. And so these are known as the branch plants, plant friends. Okay, that's a little bit about NAFTA. A quick review about NAFTA. Okay, so again, pros we can talk about, trading without taxes. Again, Mexico workers are not unionized; they pay less. American companies now operate in Canada because they have a stronger Canadian American dollar than we do. Okay, so just some pros and cons to think about in terms of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Again, a bit about assignment 8. I'm going to go back to that in a second. Again, we also looked at famous Canadian women. There were 4 that we looked at. 3 of them were the Governor General of Canada at one point, and 1 female Prime Minister of Canada. Okay, Jen Save was the first Governor General of Canada. She opened the first daycare in Parliament Hill. It's important because she was the first Governor General of Canada. Okay, she was the first. Okay, and as we talked about in the past, how women lived experience in the past, were often very limited, unequal. Um, they didn't really have a chance to work or vote in terms of equalities. So this is a big stepping stones in terms of, women's rights and equality movement in terms of Canada and what Canadian women in politics have done. So Jane Seep was the first Governor General of Canada. Again, there's other details about her. Again, all these details are outlined in your textbook as well. We also looked at and Andrina Angie Clarkson. She was also a Governor General of Canada. Again, she was the first Chinese Canadian woman. She was the second. Okay, the second Governor General of Canada. Okay, she was the second behind Jean Save. Again, Clarkson was important because again she was the first Chinese Canadian, first visible minority woman to hold power in terms of politics in Canada. Again, she was the Governor General. Other important things that she did was, as we talked about, she involved bringing Canadians together. She honored famous Canadians. She recognized them, and she promoted Canada through film, arts, and literature. Okay, she did a lot about promoting and recognize famous achievements and recognitions in Canada. Again, we also looked at Michelle Jeune. Again, another Governor General of Canada. She was the first Black woman to be the Governor General of Canada. And lastly, we looked at Kim Campbell. Kim Campbell. Again, she was the first Prime Minister of Canada, but more importantly, she was the first, female in North America to be, a national either prime minister or president. She was the first female to be that. So Kim Campbell. That's why she was important. Okay. Again, so that pretty much wraps up and complete assignment 8. If I go back a couple slides, okay, assignment 8 out of 16 marks. Question 1 says, why was the Canada Act signed? What did this act do for Canada? Okay, I'm looking for the year, the date, and its purpose. Question 2, do you think North America, Canada, United States, and Mexico will ever include other countries in a free trade agreement? Why or why not? Okay, this is your kind of like opinion question, saying yes or no. Again, so for assignments, please make sure you write in full sentences, with capitals, period, commas, full complete sentences. Don't just write jot notes or write down a one-word answer. Okay, that does not show me you're learning. Even though you may have the correct answer, you're not gonna get full marks. So make sure you write in full complete sentences. Okay, full complete sentences. Just keep that in mind. Okay. And lastly, you'll see there's a chart on assignment 8 that says, give your thoughts. Okay, give your thoughts about these individuals in Canadian history with regards to details provided in the course material. Okay, so it's really important for this part, this chart, that you give your opinion on these, famous individuals in Canadian history. Give your thought. So whether, he was an exciting man, he was a great man, he was a mean person, um, he or she was a helpful individual, uh, and such, and explain why, and give specific details, for example, I think Mackenzie King was a really kind individual because he established this, and that. Okay, I think, for example, Pierre Elliott Trudeau was a great individual, a caring man, because he, did this, and that during the FLQ or Quebec Quiet Revolution period. Brian Mulroney, again, was another helpful individual, for example, or a caring individual and such because he did this and this, or it can be like Jean Say was a mean person because she did this kind of thing. Okay, so give your thought and then give proof and details about why you think or help support that or your thoughts and your opinion. Okay, and that's just a chart. And lastly, before we wrap up PLAR history and move on, for those that you can see my smartboard screen, you'll see something, um, you'll see my mark sheet, basically, the breakdown of your assignments. Okay, so basically I'll have your name, which community you're from. You see my name, the course, whether it's, in this case would be PLAR history. You can see that there's 8 total assignments. Okay, there's 8 assignments. Okay, we cover lots of topics. We cover the change in face of Canada, Canada World War I, the 20s to 30s, the Second World War, Japanese involvement, what happened after the Second World War, the Quiet Revolution, and again, we just wrapped up the Canada Act and NAFTA. Okay, so those are 8 assignments, and we finished 3 lessons. Okay, those are 3 lessons. Okay, there's a total of 5 lessons. Okay, whereas geography has lesson 4 and 5, but PLAR history has 3 lessons. Altogether, 3 lessons. Okay, so basically, in order for you, class and students, to be able to or be eligible to write your PLAR history test, you must complete all assignments. Okay, so all 8 assignments, you must have done significantly well in all assignments, meaning that you had attempt all questions, show me that you have good understanding of the contents and the material. Once all that is completed, and I notice that you're ready to write the test, you can set up a meeting, a date and a time with your DEC at your learning center in your community. Set up a date, get back to me. I'll double check to make sure you're eligible to write the test. Then I'll fax the test to your learning center, to your DEC. They'll print that off, and then during your time and the date that you guys have created, you can write that test under their supervision. Okay, so that's pretty much how the test goes. Again, the test is pretty straightforward. It's a pass or fail situation. Okay, so that's why it's important that we attempt all questions in assignments and have done significantly well. Okay. Again, if you have questions about, when you're able to or eligible to write the test, get a hold of me. I'll double check all my stats and all mark sheets to make sure that you're up to date with all your marks and assignments, and then you can write it. Again, I have a comment section to indicate what you have done well, what you can improve on, and what you can focus on for the future. Okay, you got your learning habits that indicate it, excellent, good, satisfaction, need improvement, and such. Okay. So every time you submit an assignment or work, you'll see this mark sheet. Okay, I'll indicate your mark, I'll put it in your percentage, give you feedback, I'll send it off. Okay, so you'll see this a lot. You'll see this a lot. Okay. Are there any questions about anything in terms of PLAR history? Lila and Knight in Fort Hope, do we have any questions right now? Okay, so PLAR history can now be completed. Okay, this is the first half of the course is now completed. Okay. All right, with that being said, I'm gonna take a few minutes today and we'll start, the second half of the course. So we're gonna look at geography. And we're switching gears now. So for all those students who need this portion, need this section, this is PLAR geography. Okay. Again, feel free to ask any questions in terms of PLAR history. Okay. Again, like I mentioned, a lot of us are at different stages in terms of where we're at and in terms of our learning. But what I'm teaching right now, move along in terms of this term and throughout this 9-week course. We're switching gears. We're at the halfway point. Okay, we're almost done. And now we look at the second half. We're gonna look at geography. We're gonna look at geography. Okay, so in terms of PLAR geography, there's 2 lessons. So lesson 4, and then we'll get to lesson 5. Okay, so we'll look at first, and we'll look at human geography, and then lesson 5 will be physical geography. But we're gonna focus on human geography for the next few weeks or so, and then we'll wrap it up by looking at lesson 5, physical geography. Okay, so this is where we're at. Again, in terms of your textbook, you're going to want to follow along in your textbook. I'm on page 25, 26. 25, 26. Okay, so again, your learning goals. Again, so you'll be able to identify. So basically, by the end of today's lesson and this week's lesson, you're going to be able to identify human geography. You're going to be able to explain the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is NAFTA. Again, like I talked about, we're going to look at NAFTA once again, but in a bit of greater detail. Uh, um, but your learning goals or your expectations, okay, you'll be able to name the three main topics. You'll be able to name the three main topics of human geography and explain the meaning of trade surplus. You will be able to explain why countries of NAFTA want this agreement and the benefit it provides. Okay, again, we'll go into greater details about NAFTA. You'll also identify and provide details of the controversy and disputes since NAFTA. Okay, again, we'll look up greater details about NAFTA for this lesson, for this class, I should say. All right, here we go. Geography. Geography. Again, like I said, we're going to talk about human geography. Human geography. So again, I'm going to put this in a little box to indicate that it's important. Put a little star beside for a little reminder. Again, just a reminder, all my lessons will be posted on YouTube right after this class. So again, if you want to go back and look at the materials that we covered today in class, you can always do that. It's on YouTube. Again, just search Jeho Wasa. Okay, Jeho Wasa, and you should be able to find it. Again, if you have difficulties, let me know. You can, like I mentioned before, you can also go to the NNEC homepage under the Wasa class archive. You can download all my lessons via MP3 files. You can listen again to all my lessons. Again, you won't be able to see what I'm underlining and circling on my smartboard screen, but again, you can also listen to all my lesson again through that method as well. Okay? So human geography. Human geography. Okay, so we're gonna go through a bit of terminology and definitions. Again, it's important that we know what these definition, these terminology means. So we're gonna look at human geography. So what does human geography mean? Are there any guesses? I know you can read the definition on my screen, but like any guesses and then any guesses in terms of what human geography relates to and what it means? Human geography. Any guesses what it means? Any thoughts? Any guesses? Human geography. Well, human geography, let's see from a screen and in your textbook. Human geography is the human, political, and cultural branch of geography that focus on humans adapting themselves to the land and to other people. Okay. It also deals with economics, urbanism, and military. Okay. Okay. So and again, it's really important that you again see words that are bolded. That really means really important. You'll see these. You'll need to know these terms again for one of the questions on your next assignment. Okay. I'll ask like what are the three main um, branches or topics covered in human geography. Okay. So in other words, in terms of human geography, what we're going to be talking about for the next, few classes. So we're going to look at, people, the country, um, their communities, perhaps. Okay, so we look at all these, so human, people, where they're living. Okay, so people, country, communities, and such. Okay, and we're gonna link that, we can also look at their culture, perhaps, their influence in terms of human geography. We're gonna link all that in terms of, where they live in the world. So, we're gonna look at land, we're gonna look at space. So in terms of geography, geography, geo. Okay, so we're gonna link all that. So that's basically what human geography is all about. Okay, so we'll link in, people, the country, the communities, the culture, and how it relates to, space, the land, how it's being used, and how it influenced people and such. Okay, remember how we talked about economics, urbanism, and military. So basically, economics, okay, is a factor that determines production, consumption of goods and service. Okay, so that was economics means. Okay, so looking at how produ productions, consumptions, goods and service are being used in terms of an area or a country. Um, look at urbanism, which is like look at different towns, cities, communities. Okay, the the landscape, how it was formed. Okay, this is all geography aspects. And military. Looking at like armed forces and protections in terms of one country. Okay, so that's a bit about human geography. Okay, human geography. Scrolling down on my slide, you'll see economic geography. Again, I'm still on page 26 of your textbook. Still on page 26 of the textbooks. So we're looking at economic geography. Again, more terms, more definitions that you'll see again that will pop up on your assignments. Okay, you'll be like, what does this term mean? I'll explain its purposes. Again, we'll look at economic geography. Again, I'll put that in a little box. So economic geography is a study of a wide variety of economic conditions across the earth. Okay, the economics of a geography area can be influenced by, again, climate, geology, social political factors. Okay, so again, economics, it means, uh, production, consumption, good service, what's being created, in terms of sales and such. Okay, so factors that influence it, in terms of climate, uh, basically, how, like, basically how it can be like how warm an area is or how cold in terms of a particular area. Okay, because of that, it can influence natural resources. Okay, so climate can influence by natural resources. What resources are in a particular area. Again, agriculture, forestry productions. Okay, if it's really cold in one particular area of the world, for example, up north in northern community, it's really cold most of the time. So in terms of agriculture and forestry productions, for example, may influence economics. Okay, so we might need to get agriculture or produce from somewhere else. There's also impact, working conditions as well, and productivity. Okay, so all this are terms of factors in terms of economic geography. Geology, which means that's climate geology. That's basic means like the study of like the Earth landscape and its formation and its physical landscape. So again, you may be surrounded by mountains, lakes, and such, so that may impact, your economics. Or you may be in an area, of like lots of cities and urbans and such like that, and that could increase productivity as well. So it depends on, where you're living, what country you're living in. For example, Canada, United States, for example, um, produce, have a highly developed economics, because we're well-sustained countries. We produce a lot. You know, we harvest a lot of raw materials, manufacture their own goods through industries. Okay, and so that shows that we have a good economics, good economics. Whereas other countries in the world, they may be, maybe less developed. Therefore, they may have, a less developed economics. Okay, again, they may produce less raw materials, may have less natural resources. Um, they may have less, agriculture being produced. So there's many factors. Okay, again, social political factors. Politics, the government play a huge role in terms of what's being produced, what's being sold, what's being shipped in. Okay, so these are all factors. Okay, so again, it all links back to what we talked about in terms of human geography. Okay, so human geography is the link between the people, the land, the culture. Again, how it links to the space, the land, how it's being used and such. Okay, so in terms of where we're living and such, our culture and influence impacts how we use the space that we're studying. Okay, so that's what human geography um, is all about. It's going to be covered. Okay, so like I talked about, countries like Canada and United States, again, they have a highly developed economics, which means that they're able to trade goods to other countries back and forth. They're able to gain more money in materials that way. Okay, or a less developed country may trade with Canada and United States in order to get materials. For example, Canada may produce a lot of lumber, so therefore, other countries who do not have a lot of lumber may be coming to Canada and buying lumber, or exporting or importing goods. Okay, so another term that you'll see come up again in your assignments that's really important again is this term called trade surplus. Trade surplus. Yeah, I'm gonna put a little star beside it and put a little box around it. Okay, that is important. Trade surplus. So what trade surplus is that a country has more goods to export to another country than goods to import. Ooh, that's a lot right there. A country that has more goods to import to another country than goods to import. Okay, let's stop for a moment and talk about these two terms, import and export. Okay, so import, it's mean we're getting. So we're draw a little arrow. It's that they're getting something. Okay, so import, okay, it means that a country or a particular region is getting goods, uh, productions, natural resources from someone else. Okay, from someone else. Okay, whereas export, so where arrows are going on the opposite side, they're like they're given in a way. They're given, or they're trading, or they're giving something away. The export. Okay, so export means, for example, Canada will be exporting a lot of goods to different countries around the world. Okay, because we have, for example, in terms of a particular natural resources or goods or raw materials, we may be exporting to other countries. Other countries. Whereas again, less developed countries will be importing. Okay, they'll be getting. Okay, so trade surplus means a country that has goods to export. So goods to export, so we have lots of goods to give away to another country than goods to give, to get. Okay, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, importing and exporting. It's like we're giving and we're getting. Okay, if I need something, I will import it because I'm getting it from someone. Or I have a lot of this particular resource, I'm going to export it to someone else because we have so much of it, kind of thing. Okay, so that's a bit about economic geography. Okay, again, there's lots of new terminology and definitions that we need to be familiar with. Okay, so again, it's really important that we take the time and just slow it down a little bit. Okay, I'm not gonna rush. We have lots of time. Again, we're move along nicely throughout the course. So again, if at any point you want me to stop and go back and explain something, I have that time. Okay, so economic geography, make sure you know what that means. So economic geography um, is a geographical area that can be influenced by climate, geology, and social political factors. Okay, so again, lots of goods, factors, influences, and such. Again, make sure you are familiar with the term trade surplus. Okay, you'll see that term again. So make sure you know that term trade surplus. Okay, a country that has more goods to export to another country than goods to import uh, can be called trade surplus. Again, all these materials are in your textbook again. Nothing new. Okay, all the words and text on my slides are all in your textbook. The only is different is that you'll see some images, some diagrams, and what I'm circling and underlining is what's different. Okay? Alright, next slide. Again, we got NAFTA. I'm gonna look at NAFTA again. Does anyone know what NAFTA stands for? We talked about it in our PLAR history. NAFTA. What does NAFTA stand for? NAFTA. Are Delilah and Knight still with me over at Fort Hope? Are you guys still listening and can you guys hear me still?
Yeah,
Yeah, perfect. Do you guys know what NAFTA stands for? Do you guys remember? We talked about it a lot. NAFTA?
North American Free Trade Agreement.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering the question tonight. I'm gonna give you a little check mark for your participation. So thank you so much. Yes, exactly. Again, so nothing new here. We talked about it in terms of free trade agreement in our section of history. Again, we'll look at it again in terms of our geography section. We'll look at NAFTA. Again, you'll see it again more on your upcoming assignments. So NAFTA, like Nate had mentioned, thank you, Nate. Again, it's North American Free Trade Agreement. Okay, so make sure all my students you know what NAFTA stands for. Okay, so I'm gonna underline NAFTA. I'll put a little star beside it. A little important. So NAFTA again, as you remember, it involves country like Canada, United States, and Mexico. So all the countries in terms of North American. It's a agreement in order to trade goods back and forth between these two countries without paying taxes or duties or tariffs on these goods. Okay. So NAFTA was established on January 1st, 1994. January 1st, 1994. Again, uh, remember this date. You'll see this date come up again. Okay, so NAFTA, what it stands for, and the date. January 1st, 1994. Again, like I talked about many times, the goal of NAFTA, why it was created, was to be able to trade goods, remove any taxes as much as possible, while trading between these countries. Okay, that's the goal. We want to eliminate tax so that we can trade, you know, improve our economy and industry in terms of goods and service while trading back and forth without paying taxes. Okay, because again, no one wants to pay tax. Tax is just a lot of money that we gotta pay for extra. Okay, so that's just a bit about NAFTA. Again, okay, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Again, class, we're going to talk about NAFTA, like I said. Again, we're going to talk about, the purposes of NAFTA again, the good side. Then we'll look at the negative side, the consequences, the controversy sides. Okay, so NAFTA, it's an agreement. I mean, it sounds good in terms of, well, being able to trade goods without paying taxes, but there's also some negative consequences as well. Okay, some controversies, some things that people may not necessarily agree on why we have this agreement. So again, we talked about more about that. So we're going to start off again looking at the good side. Well, the purpose of NAFTA, its intentions, and why it was created. Okay. Again, like I said, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Again, it was established in January 1st, 1994. Okay, agreement between Canada, United States, and Mexico. Okay. So again, like I said, its main purpose was to eliminate duties on half of all the United States goods shipped to Mexico and such. Okay, we want to eliminate duties and taxes. That's the main goal of NAFTA. Okay. Again, there were restrictions that were removed on many categories. Okay, so I'm talking about trading goods and products. Talked about items. So restrictions were to be removed on many categories. Okay, so for example, what we can now trade back and forth without paying tax include motor vehicles, automotive parts, like car parts, computers, we trade that back and forth, textiles and agriculture, fruits and vegetables and goods back and forth. Again, for example, in terms of geography, in terms of, human geography and economic geography, for example, we know that Mexico, it's beneath Canada, it's southern towards Canada. It's a lot warmer in Mexico. Therefore, they may produce more, fruits and vegetables than we do in Canada, because Canada at times is mostly cold. So that's why we're trading back and forth. United States have, lots of, computers and cars that they produce and create each year. So that's why we can trade back and forth in all these three countries without paying taxes or eliminating as much tax as possible. Also, this NAFTA agreement or treaty that was created, not a positive aspect about NAFTA was that it protected property rights. Okay, so like copyright stuff, trademarks, it protected that. Okay, that's another significant of this agreement. So then no one can steal a copyrighted company's name or trademark per se. Okay. Again, also in terms of NAFTA, on a positive side that came out of NAFTA, because later on, there was environmental protections, we try to protect the environment, try to go green. Okay, so this is just some examples that was, why NAFTA was created, its purpose, and its goal. Okay, again, all these materials are in your textbook. Okay, even though I'm just covering all the main points that's being covered in textbook, make sure you please take the time to always go back in your textbook and read each section. There's lots of details and information in there. Okay, so it's really important that you go back and you read all the materials in your textbook. Okay. Again, NAFTA was signed with Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. We'll see that name again with the United States Prime Minister George H.W. Bush. Again, all this is just, background details, background information about more about, NAFTA. I'm not going to read through all this. Okay, but again, just more details about NAFTA. And again, at the bottom, you'll see controversy. Okay, controversy. So in other words, controversy, now again, another term that you may not be necessarily familiar with, but controversy means, disagreement, disputes. Someone have, a different opinion, whether it's positive or negative, its impact, it's controversy. It can go either way. So some may agree with it, some may disagree with it for particular reasons. Okay, so next class, on Thursday, I'm going to talk about the controversy of NAFTA. Okay, so we'll cover about that NAFTA. I'm going to stop it here for today. Again, I don't want to get too far ahead. We just briefly started PLAR geography. Again, I'm going to take a few minutes here, just pause it, stop it here, and, open up the floor to the class to see if anyone has any questions, any difficulties, anything you want me to clear up. Again, I'm here to answer any questions. Okay, so again, I know Fort Hope is on the line. I got Knight and Delilah. Again, thank you, Knight and Delilah, for listening. Again, like I said, I have been receiving assignments, which is great. Again, so for all my students, please continue to submit assignments. I also noticed that at times, I believe some students are sending in assignments, but I'm not receiving it through my fax. So if you don't hear from my comments or feedbacks in for like a while, make sure you hang on to all your assignments, all the original, just in case you get lost in the mail or somehow didn't get due in terms of fax. You have your original and you can always fax it back to me again, and hopefully I'll get it the second time. Okay. So Knight and Delilah, I know you guys are online right now. Do you guys have any any comments, any questions at the moment? Any difficulties?
No.
You guys are doing good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Again, all your PLAR history assignments completed?
What?
Are all the history assignments completed? Are you working on your geography section?
Yeah.
Awesome. And what about you, Delilah? Are you working on geography at the moment, or are you still working on history?
Still working on history.
History? Okay. Perfect. Not a problem. I just want to know, make sure where you guys are at in terms of your progress. Again, it's okay. You'll learn at your own pace. There's no need to rush and such. Okay, I know we all have busy lives and other commitments and such, but again, please take the time to do a good job in all your assignments, whether you're still working on PLAR history or you're working on PLAR geography. Please please take time, do a good job on it. Once done, please submit to me. I'll mark it, I'll give you feedback, and I'll answer any questions you need, okay? Are there any last comments, any other questions at the moment before I take off? Again, on Thursday, we're going to continue looking at the human geography aspects in terms of lesson 4. We're going to continue looking at NAFTA. Then we're going to move on looking at human rights again, and other free trades. We'll eventually get to the Commonwealth nations and its purposes. So those are just some topics that we're going to be looking in the next few classes. Okay. Again, I want to say a special thank you to Fort Hope in terms of Delilah and Knight. Thank you for listening and tuning in at your Learning Center. Again, I want to thank all the students whether you're at different communities listening in or at home listening and participating. Again, thank you for listening to PLAR Geography. Again, my name is Jonathan. This is week 5, class 1. Okay, and I'll see everyone on Thursday when we continue looking at geography. Okay, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all on Thursday.